All right. What is going on, everybody? And welcome to another episode of Y Nada Más El Real Madrid podcast. And I am your host, Eric Rivera. And this is, of course, the live stream of the podcast. Still waiting, I guess, for some people to jump on the chat. But in the meantime, we'll go through the business. So definitely, we're still, like I said, we're still in World Cup mode. We're coming to the end of it. I'm kind of, not to say that I want the World Cup to end, because the World Cup has been full of emotion. It's been full of drama. The narratives left and right have been absolutely fantastic. They're really, I think this World Cup has been chock full of drama, of storylines, of epic comebacks, of last minute goals, of surprises galore. I mean, it's been an absolutely phenomenal World Cup. The politics and everything regarding Qatar, and whether it was a good choice of a location or not, I mean, that is a conversation that will continue to happen, especially for those of us on the West. You know, I am one that obviously believes in human rights and all those kind of things, and I do believe in LGBTQ rights and all that kind of stuff. And I see why there's animosity towards it, but then I also understand, hey, if you're in another country, you kind of got to abide by those rules, whether you like them or not. So there's been a lot of things said in that regard, but I'll just leave it at that, because I don't like to jump into it. I'm just saying, I don't necessarily agree with having the World Cup in Qatar, but they've done a good job, and they regardless of what I might have thought, I think they did a good job. I think they're doing a good job. I think I've been watching a lot of videos of, YouTubers and streamers that are doing things live from Qatar, essentially. And, it's football is a beautiful thing, because it unites the world. It unites different cultures. And sometimes, hey, man, friends can have disagreements. We can have different views on different things. There's no reason for people to get bent out of shape about it, and things like that. Obviously, do I agree with certain things? Do I think, you should criminalize people's sexuality and shit like that? No. But at the end of the day, those aren't the decisions that I make. Those aren't the decisions. I think that, I think the other thing is we kind of conflate these athletes and put them in a position where they're going to comment on things that really they don't have a lot of knowledge of, or in a lot of ways, when you're representing your country in a World Cup and you're an athlete, you don't. I mean, I know it sounds a little bit brutal, but it's something that you don't really have number one, you don't have a say in as much, because if you're part of a federation and they choose you and they call you up to go and represent your country, I mean, for every football player, their goal is to represent their country. They want to do it to the best of their ability. They want to compete. They want to show the world their talents. And you're putting them in a position where they can't really enjoy that, because you're asking them all these questions about, socio-political situations and geopolitical things. And sure, some have all the right to stand up. I believe, everyone has the right to protest. Everyone has the right to stand up for what they believe in. And sure, they have every right to use their platform. But some players are good at that. Some players are good at using their platform, and they want to use it, and then some other players just want to play football. They might not, it might not be that they are, they're not, how would I say? They're not less people because they've decided not to get involved with politics, or they've decided that they're not going to get involved in that narrative because they don't, they just don't want to. They want to focus on their football, and more power to either of them. I think it comes to time where you have to respect, how everybody sort of deals with certain situations. Maybe in their personal life, they're like me and, they don't agree with certain things, but what are they going to do? I mean, they're just football players. I mean, they're going to do their talking on the pitch, and afterwards, I guarantee you a lot of these guys are going to come out and maybe say something afterwards, whether they liked it or not, or whether they thought it was a good thing or a good idea or not. But in the end, if they competed, and that's what they're going to focus on. I mean, listen, we've had plenty of places that the World Cup has been held, and it was, I would say it wasn't the greatest places to put it. Russia being one of them, considering, what's going on there now. When the World Cup went to South Africa, when there was a lot of corruption involved with that we know because of FIFA. We know there was a lot of, greasing the wheels in order for them to get to that, to get that. Brazil had a huge problem with their infrastructure. There were people in Brazil that did not want the World Cup to happen in their country because they felt like there was not the infrastructure. There was a lot of other problems in Brazil that needed to be focused on, and a World Cup was really not, it was not the time to do a World Cup in their country. And they were very angry about it, and rightfully so, So, all that stuff aside, like I'm saying, it's really just an annoying thing. Not an annoying thing, I'm sorry. It's just putting people in position to do that is somewhat of a rough thing to do. And in the end, like I said, I've seen videos and I have friends. Listen, I have friends that are from many, many, many countries, and I think maybe my upbringing, my education, it's always been that I want to open my eyes and open my mind to other cultures. I have friends that are Palestinian. I have friends that are Israeli. I have friends, and they've told me their own versions of, what's going on in the conflict. And some of them, believe it or not, there's a lot of times where there is a consensus of what is going on is bad. And sometimes there is a consensus on that, maybe the governments of let's say, of Israel are not handling the things correctly, that there are different ways of handling the situation. That's coming sometimes from Israelis themselves. So there's a lot of different things that you can get into, but I have, like I said, people from all walks of life. I am very passionate. So here's a caveat about how this podcast is going to go, essentially, because I'm very passionate about football. I love it. However, there are certain things that I think are foolish. There are certain things that I feel, some behaviors that I think are ridiculous. I understand the passion of football, but I don't understand, the feeling of having to get in fistfights with people. I don't understand the feelings of xenophobia, the feelings of racism, that somehow rear their ugly heads when we're playing football or we're watching a World Cup. And I see it in a lot of different ways. I think there's animosity, there's rivalries, there's banter. There is, I think, sometimes a legitimate dislike of certain teams, of certain players. But does it carry over into certain things? And speaking as a South American, because my family's from Colombia, I grew up watching Colombian football. I think the only time I ever really, there are very few times that I feel a pit in my stomach when I'm watching a game. Like I'm super nervous and I want, and it's mostly because I would say there's a rivalry with a team that's in front of the team that I'm going for that I genuinely dislike. I would say hate is kind of a strong word, but there are times that I hate certain players and I really dislike them, and I don't wish them anything but the worst in the world, in a footballing sense, but then, it's kind of like, would I ever get into like a fist fight with somebody? I don't think so, but I think a lot of times when there's a lot of back and forth, sometimes in in these matches, I think xenophobia and racism kind of rears its ugly head, and then you start saying things that people start saying, as they say in the fight game. Because if you're just starting to listen to me now, I just want to let you know I come from a background that is kickboxing and Muay Thai, and my past was the fight game essentially, and that's what I used to do a podcast about, and I've been involved in it and still am involved in it, in the fight game, more so as a coach now, and just training for fun now, not competing anymore, although I used to step in the ring, and there are certain things, that would happen in that world too, and I bring that sort of idea of that game into I guess my experience in that type of competitive mindset into what I feel sometimes football can be. And the funny thing is, I think when you're a fighter or you fought in the ring, fighting over anything, fighting outside of the ring kind of ends up just being silly, So, because you kind of know that you can hurt somebody, so why would you just go out and do it? And that people can hurt you in the ring, so why would you go out and do it? Why would I want to get injured before a fight in a stupid bar brawl or something over a football match, But like I said, there's a lot of times that people, like I said, coming from the fight game, there's a saying that says sometimes people write checks, or it's something like they write checks that their mouths can't cash, essentially, or write checks with their mouth that they can't cash, essentially. So it's basically, you're talking shit, and they don't understand the repercussions sometimes of talking shit, Now, this is not a defense of Argentina, but it's not a defense of Argentina, trust me. There are a couple different things I don't agree with in the way they reacted to things. But I'm just saying, there are things, when I say that, I'm saying that what I'm alluding to is essentially that I feel that people say things on Twitter, they say things, in this virtual space that, if they were in front of somebody, they would probably never say those things, because bottom line is they'd probably get laid out, and some of the stuff is vile, some of the stuff that they say is vile. And then, and there's a reason that people then end up disliking a fan base, disliking a team, disliking the way they behave. So with all that said, I think I just kind of want to say that that's a caveat for kind of my opinions in this, stream, because I do have some opinions about the way Argentina reacted about the shooting off at the mouth that they did. Because honestly, I feel like I read the things that Holland's, that Van Gaal said, Van Gaal, however you pronounce his name, that Van Gaal said. And I really don't see it as being anything offensive, other than what a coach tells his team and tells the media, because if he were to come out and say, we're incredibly afraid of Messi, we're incredibly afraid of this Argentina team, we don't think we have a chance if it goes to penalties, he'd look like an absolute idiot. Your job as a coach is to rile up your players, and that's why I take a how would I say? I take I forgot what, the way to say it. I take a page out of the book of the fight world, essentially, which is, there's so much shit talking in the fight world, man. Like right before a fight, two fighters are just, jawing at each other, and some of the stuff, it can be straight up insulting. I don't like it. I personally don't like it. I never really engaged in it when I was a fighter. I never let my fighters, when they were competing, to engage in that type of talk. Listen, I had my son playing, basically what we call here in the States pee-wee football. And, he started talking a little bit of trash to the other team. And we're talking about 6-7-year-olds. I don't know where he got it. I think he probably got it from YouTube or something, and so he started mouthing off a little bit, saying, that's what you get after he scored a goal or something. And I shut it down, and I shut it down real quick, because that's just something you don't do. So, I don't believe in this whole narrative of they said things that were insulting to us, and so that warrants what? That warrants you laughing in their face, going after Van Gaal, who's like a 72-year-old dude who's like going through cancer, slapping away the hand of somebody who's asking for your jersey, pelting a ball against the opposing team's bench. And not to say that everything that Argentina did was wrong and the stuff that the Dutch team did was right. I think they were both could have handled everything a little bit better. I think there were cool heads in both of the camps that were trying to slow things down. But then the fan base comes in and that's what happens. And honestly, like I said, I'm going to be biased here. I mean, because essentially I have family that's lives in the Netherlands. My background is Colombian, so I already have sort of a dislike of Argentina, not of the people. And that's where I think people need to be clear. Like for me, my criticism of Argentina, and a lot of people are saying it's because we're Madrid and Barcelona, Leo Messi, hurt Barcelona. And my issue isn't even so much with Messi. My issue isn't so much with Messi. My dislike of Argentina has gone on long before, of the Argentinian national team, I would say, has gone on long before Messi was even a part of the team. I disliked them way back in the day. I felt they were, in the days of Batistuta, Diego Simeone, there was just plenty of players, Hernan Crespo, there were plenty of players that I just did not like. I think there was always, back in the day, there was always a little bit of an animosity between Colombia and Argentina for a couple of years when Colombia really had its golden generation in a way, or the first golden generation with Pibe Valderrama and Faustino Asprilla, that we did the famous 5-0 against Argentina and qualified first in CONMEBOL to go to the World Cup, to the 1994 World Cup, which we ended up, of course, tragically crashing out of. And then a bunch of other things happened because the government and Colombia's, problems with corruption and everything that goes on behind the scenes has been absolutely terrible for years. So that is my kind of like, where my sort of animosity has kind of always stemmed from. I always found them arrogant. I always found them believing so much in, obviously Maradona was a fantastic player. Obviously Messi is a fantastic player. Batistuta was an amazing player. There are so many players. I happen to be one of the guys that really likes Dybala, and I don't understand why he doesn't play more. I like Lisandro Martinez, I liked Gonzalo Higuain. I liked Di Maria, of course, because he played for Real Madrid. There are plenty of players that I have liked that are Argentinian players. So it has nothing to do so much with that, but so much with the behavior that was seen in that game, and not even Messi. Although, it'll break my heart as a Cristiano fan to see Messi win the World Cup. It would break my heart as a Cristiano fan, but more so as just an Argentina national team hater. But like I said, this has nothing to do with this has nothing to do with Argentina themselves. Now, I would think most people would say it's very difficult to disconnect Argentina or are the Argentinian people from football because they are so incredibly passionate about football. But the idea that they're passionate about football or their passion of football goes above and beyond anyone else is really just not true. I would say the football passion for Brazil, Colombia, Peru, all of South America were passionate about football. Look at Mexico. Mexico can, easily people will say that they have the most annoying fans sometimes. Argentina has annoying fans. Brazil has annoying fans. Colombia has annoying fans, me being one of them, I lived in Peru. I thought their fans could be absolutely annoying too. They were always living, when I was in Peru and there was World Cup qualifiers, they were always living in the past, with the team that they had in the 80s, I believe, that qualified for the World Cup and was a very solid team, So there's always been, I think, this animosity in South America between, as much as we are Latinos and we believe and like each other, I'm sorry, we are on the same continent and we share the same language. I think the problem with many people from the outside looking in, let's say from Europeans or from Americans, and from other countries looking at South America, is this idea that because we share the same language, we're similar in culture, when that's very, very untrue. There are the similarities in culture, and I think a lot of times the similarities, you can say there are probably some small similarities culturally, but outside of the language, and those small things, the differences in culture are vast, and they're interesting. Like I said, I lived in Peru, I lived in Ecuador. They were very different from, the Colombian culture that I grew up in. Obviously very different from the US culture that I also experienced and grew up in. I've traveled to many countries, and you see culturally where a lot of people are different. And that's why I say, to say that Argentina or Brazil in South America are more passionate about football isn't really true. I think everybody in South America is passionate about football. Not to say that this is something to be proud of, but the fact that we go to the lengths of actually, getting in fistfights and almost killing each other over a football match goes to show you how passionate these people are. It's pretty insane. Although I think that probably happens everywhere else too. Hooligans and England, that's happened for many years. So it's been an interesting thing. It's been an interesting sort of development after the Argentina-Netherlands game, and I'm going to get into it in a little bit. But anyways, guys, I am the host of the Y Nada Más podcast. Obviously, we're focused on Real Madrid, but since Real Madrid isn't playing right now because there's no club football, we're talking about the World Cup and everything that's going on with the World Cup. So welcome to the show. I know I've been rambling on for 20 minutes here about everything that has to do with politics and the game and the mixture of politics and, stuff going on, extracurricular stuff going on during this World Cup. But really, I just thought, I wanted to say it and kind of give a little bit of a caveat there that I am biased because I have family that is from Holland. I have family that currently lives in Holland. So, and the fact that I'm not really a big fan, being Colombian, I'm not really a big fan of Argentina. So there's obviously going to be things that I'm going to say that'll rub some Argentina fans the wrong way. But one thing I'll say, it doesn't reflect on the Argentinian people, because I always say this to people. I've never met, Argentina has this stereotype in South America for being very arrogant, for being, always, as we say in English sometimes, that their shit smells rosier than most. But the funny thing is, I've met plenty of Argentinians in my life, especially living in Miami. You run into a lot of them, and I've never had a bad experience with any of them. They've always been very kind and very inviting and very nice people. I think what happens is when it comes to football, they're absolutely, just absolutely psycho sometimes for football. They absolutely love it. So, we got my first, my good friend Darshil Shah jumping in. I think you're joining from Colorado. I think that was the last time you said. Everything's going good. So we're just talking about obviously what we've seen during this these quarterfinals, which has been nothing short of extraordinary. I think this World Cup continues to deliver. So it's been pretty wild. So here, just wanted to share a couple of things. So once again, guys, if you're listening, you're either watching the live stream now, but if you're not watching the live stream and you're listening to it, it is most likely on delay because, I'm going to post this after I do the live stream. I'm going to upload it into a podcast format. And it will be on Spotify. It'll be on Apple Podcasts. It'll be anywhere you find your podcast. So you can listen to the Nada Más podcast there. And then also you can listen to, or you can watch us on Twitter at Nada Más. We're going to talk about that, Darshil. You can find me on Twitter at Y Nada Más Podcast. You can find me on Facebook at Y Nada Más Podcast, or us, I would say, with the team, basically. You can find us on Instagram at YNM Podcast, and of course, Twitch and YouTube at Nada Más Podcast. So listen, guys, let's just jump into this thing. Here we are right now. This is kind of here's where we are in the brackets. Essentially, here's where we are. Here's where we are on this knockout phase. So let me remove the video for a second. Sorry, my face for a second. So like I said, guys, there's going to be some things here that I'm throwing things up on the screen. So if you're listening, you might not be in tune to it. So just check it out. Make sure you check it out on our YouTube channel so you can see kind of the stuff that I'm throwing up on the screen here. But anyway, here's the bracket. Of course, the last time I did the podcast, Argentina had defeated Australia, and the Netherlands had defeated the United States. Of course, we saw that Croatia defeated Japan on penalties. Brazil dominated against the Korean Republic, or South Korea, essentially, 4-1. England defeated Senegal 3-0. Portugal defeated Switzerland 6-1. Morocco eliminated Spain, and France defeated Poland. So the crazy thing about all of these results was we had some really lopsided results in that round of 16 phase. Brazil knocking out, South Korea 4-1. Portugal defeating Switzerland 6-1, right? We also had Morocco. I'm sorry. The surprise there was obviously Morocco kicking out Spain, and then England defeating Senegal. So for all intents and purposes, it really looked like Portugal, the game they had against Switzerland, that absolute shellacking that they gave to Switzerland. Brazil looking so comfortable against South Korea. Senegal, I mean, I wouldn't bring up England in this one because they were dominant against Senegal, and I think England did have one of the best performing sides in this World Cup, but they just happened to come up in the quarterfinals against, a tournament favorite like France. So that set up, of course, the Netherlands-Argentina quarterfinal, and then the Croatia-Brazil quarterfinal, the Portugal-Morocco quarterfinal, and the England-France quarterfinal. Obviously, for many, England-France was what we call, like in Spanish, una final adelantada, or basically a final within the World Cup that kind of could have been easily the final of the World Cup. But sometimes that's the way the cookie crumbles. You get a match that really should sort of be, in the end, and it happens earlier in the beginning. So you lose essentially a big hitter, and that would have happened. The crazy thing is we've had so many surprises because after Brazil defeated Korea, 4-1, and after Portugal defeated Switzerland 6-1, everybody obviously had these two teams as, the ones that were going to completely destroy, the idea was that Brazil was going to destroy Croatia, and most likely the fairy tale of Morocco beating Spain, or that could have been essentially a fluke, and that Portugal, after that amazing performance against Switzerland without Cristiano Ronaldo, which we get into a little bit, would do fine against Morocco, and then Argentina-Netherlands was going to be a very tight game, which it ended up being, and England and France was going to be a tight game, which it ended up being. So in the end, it was crazy because we've had two amazing knockout games. I mean, well, every one of the games were really, really good, I would say, in terms of the drama, in terms of the narratives, in terms of the repercussions, in terms of some of the things that happened on the field, So, I wanted to bring up a couple different things. So let's start out, of course, with Croatia. So throwing up, I mean, this has to be now that the game against Brazil, I don't know if Brazil essentially, I mean, the thing is here, one of the things that I think has been sort of slowly, many people have been talking about is that the midfield that Croatia has is a cheat code. They really do have an incredible midfield in the likes of Luka Modrić, Marcelo Brozovic, and Mateo Kovacic. That is an insane midfield. These guys are absolutely balling. Kovacic, I always felt like when he was in Real Madrid, I'm still a big fan of Kovacic. I didn't like the fact that he didn't get so many minutes at Real Madrid. I think he could have done, I think he was developing into the player that we see he is now. Obviously, Chelsea's having its woes and things like that, but I've always thought Mateo Kovacic was an incredible player. Brozovic has done a great job at Inter. And then, of course, Modric. I don't think there are enough adjectives to describe Modric. I think Modric is up there in the conversation. As everybody has pointed out on Twitter, he's up there in the conversation as one of the greatest midfielders of all time, and he could rapidly cement himself as possibly one of the greatest, as possibly the greatest midfielder of all time. I don't know. I mean, if he ends up lifting the World Cup, I think he could possibly put himself up there, especially considering he is 37 years old. And here's one of the things I recommend for a lot of you guys, if you haven't seen it, Netflix, check out Netflix because there is a series called Captains, and Luka Modric features in that series where he discusses kind of like what it is to be a captain. It's a bunch of different captains from teams. The biggest ones obviously are Aubameyang from Gabon. Could have played for France, but chose to play for his father's country, which is Gabon. He's the captain of Gabon. Luka Modric, obviously the captain of the Croatian national team, and then Thiago Silva, the captain of the Brazilian team, or at least at that time. I don't, because I know they've rotated many times in the captaincy. But so those guys, and the crazy story is obviously Luka Modric. It's just a beautiful story. The guy is a class act on and off the pitch. His teammates say it. The media says it. People love him all over the place. I think there's not a more loved player. I've seen people that hate Madrid say that most likely the only player that they can actually stomach when it comes to Madrid is Luka Modric. Maybe Benzema sometimes, but Modric is, of course, like universally loved. I mean, you could see it this season when he, obviously many people thinking that this could be his final season. I'm thinking he might put one more season in with Real Madrid, or a couple more seasons. God knows he's been playing that way. I do think this might be his final season with the Croatian national team, but he will most likely he hopefully will focus on Real Madrid. But he's been, as chat, you guys are saying, Modric is simply the best, bar none, in terms of longevity and uniformly being that good. He is second to none, and I absolutely agree with it. He is a fantastic, fantastic player. Seeing him on the ball brings me joy. He's one of those guys that brings people joy to simply watch. The way he can dribble out of very tight spaces, find the pass in order to advance his team. That, of course, outside foot, that ridiculous, now essentially patent pending, should be copyrighted outside foot pass of Luka Modric at this point. Instead of calling it the Trivela, we should just call it the Modric pass at this point. He's doing it again and again and again consistently, and he always hits it. It's just absolutely beautiful to watch. He is a fantastic player. He is a fantastic person. And seeing this team and him guiding this gritty team to overcome a Brazil team that was, of course, favored, that I thought Brazil was really the one that was going to go all the way because they looked just absolutely fantastic, but they ran up against a team that is hungry, gritty, never gives up. And that's one thing that Modric always says, never give up. And they're very good defensively. They're very tight defensively. They are not allowing much space. And then essentially they also are very good with their feet, and having that midfield is such an asset because the midfield, of course, is your lifeline between your defense and attack. It is what you need. A solid midfield is what you need to make transitions to attack, from defense to attack, work. And these guys do it in a way that is just so incredibly seamless. And I think the other team that does this well, that I've seen so far, of being just absolutely staunch in defense, even more so, I would say, than Croatia, and turning and transitioning to attack very quickly and being lethal is Morocco. They've been doing that, throughout this tournament as well. And here's one thing I want to have a sidebar here essentially is that, listen, I know a lot of people look at football as being entertaining, or wanting to be entertaining, but at the end of the day, it's a sport and it's a competitive sport. So yes, everything that goes on, and I think I was trying to write this the other day on Twitter, but I didn't have enough space. One of the things that I think that is super important to remember, guys, is that football is, yes, it's about entertainment, but at the same time, like I said, it is a sport. And for the athletes that are on the field, I guarantee you that the last thing that they're thinking about, and I even saw this maybe like in this captain's documentary, no one talks about entertainment. None of these players talk about entertaining the fans, because at the end of the day, I feel like they are going to want to, I think at the end of the day, we all know that a fan will be happy if we win the game, and Thiago Silva brought up a great point when, we're talking about being the captain of Brazil. He said that he would rather win a game 1-0 than win a game 3-2, and I think that has a lot to do with, because, the more those games where it's back and forth like that, when it's 3-2, so let's say you score one, they score one, you score another one, they score another one. Those games have to be absolutely nerve-wracking for the players on the pitch because they feel like, okay, we got one, now we want to get one back. Now they scored one on us, now we got to get one back. And I think that it has to do with they obviously feel that if they're scoring on us that way, we're not doing something correctly defensively. If we score one goal and then don't let any more in and we win the game that way, then we were pretty solid. Obviously you want to see more goals, and 1-0 would be kind of annoying to see all the time. But listen, I mean, a Spain that I wasn't really, I didn't really like the way they played, although I was, the Spain of the Spain of Vicente del Bosque that eventually ended up winning the World Cup in 2010 played that style of football. They were a boring team. I mean, tiki-taka, yeah, they pass a lot of passing, but they had the players to advance the ball very quickly and do those things and then end up scoring. And then I think they had better players in the attack, which were, the likes of Fernando Torres, the likes of David Villa. They had better players in that attack than I feel they do now with like Ferran and Morata. I don't feel those guys can really live up to that generation. And obviously, as good as Pedri is, I don't think he's the next Iniesta, at least not yet. And as good as Gavi is, I don't think he is, up to par with these guys. I think it's going to take time for them. And I don't think you can't, some of the Spanish, media that's been going on has essentially been, do we have the players to replicate that system? And is tiki-taka dead? And at this point, many Spanish players are saying, tiki-taka is dead, because I think in a lot of ways, football nowadays has become a lot more direct. It's been a lot more what we call, in Spanish, vertical or vertical, which is, the idea is to go quickly from defense to attack, score goals and go. This whole idea of possessing the ball hasn't really been the thing that we're seeing a lot in this World Cup. Look at Morocco. Morocco is very, very calm in letting the other team have the ball. I would say Croatia is pretty good at letting the other team have the ball and then just, doing their own thing and working their way of trying to get, trying to stop the team from advancing using that incredible midfield that they have and then turn rapidly into attack, and then you have also, let's say, what was the other team I was going to say that does pretty much kind of the same thing of turning, defense into attack. Oh, Netherlands was very happy to cede possession consistently. Now, it didn't work as much. That idea didn't work. It worked well against the USA. It didn't work against the Argentinian team. And then they had to essentially, resort to, which, Lionel Messi wasn't happy about it. And they think it's anti-football, I guess. But the idea of, putting two tall guys in the box and scoring goals that way. And, To me, this whole idea of beautiful football or whatnot and it being fun and engaging and beautiful is, I think, we're playing the World Cup, guys. Like, the World Cup is not, you could say like the league. We always talk about when teams are playing in a league, it's a marathon, not a sprint, right? So, you can be conservative. You can try to, sometimes you're going to have to win these gritty games. You're going to change up tactics with each team that you play. But in the World Cup, you kind of have to find a style and stick to it because it is a sprint. It's essentially 7 games that you have to really, with teams that, with a team full of guys that usually don't even play with each other that much. And it's really trying to get that style and get that feeling and get, that chemistry very quickly and immediately turn it into a winning team while you're facing some of the best teams in the world. So it is a very difficult thing to do. I agree, Darshil. It's quick transition football is what we're seeing now as being sort of the modern way of football. It is, sure, sit back, defend, absorb some pressure. Obviously having a good midfield helps, and it's just using that midfield, to defend, and then, your midfielders are going to take it up very quickly and then have a striker that can bang it in, or have some, fullbacks that'll bomb down the field, cross into the box, head the ball in, and then, boom, we're back. We're back to the middle of the pitch again. We're back to the middle of the pitch again. Let's go again. Let's do it again. It's very fast. It's very, it's kind of I would say, to use a term, World War II term, blitzkrieg football. It's just, just full on attack, lightning attack football. So that is what we've, talking about all that. So anyway, going to, Luka Modrić, I mean, class act of a guy. This was beautiful, the way he, and the reason I'm bringing it up is because I think it was such night and day, the reaction that Luka Modrić and the team had with the Brazilian team, different than obviously the team, what we saw from Argentina and the Netherlands. Now, obviously there was other little things going on behind the scenes during that game, as we know, but I just thought it was dealt with very nicely by Modrić. And obviously people are saying, he was good to Rodrigo because he plays with Rodrigo, but he also went and, hugged Neymar. You also saw Perisic's kids go and try to console Neymar. So there was a lot of, very much camaraderie and understanding. Hey guys, this is the World Cup. This is kind of what happens, we're seeing more and more now with the way football is going, is that there are no easy teams anymore. There are no pushovers, very few pushovers. I think teams like, Switzerland had a great game against Serbia and then looked terrible against Portugal, or were overrun against Portugal. I think those things, ebb and flows, can happen. Portugal, which looked fantastic against Switzerland, didn't seem to find that same fluidity when they played Morocco. Credit to Morocco for not letting them play with that fluidity, So it is an interesting World Cup for that reason. And but I think going back to Luka Modrić, I think the common thread here is that I am full on hoping for a Croatia, whoever final, whether it's France or Morocco. I would love to see Luka Modrić lift the World Cup. If it's not Luka Modrić, I would definitely want to first see Morocco and then finally see France. And then if not any of those, I guess I'll have to go with Argentina, even though it would make me cry tears of absolute hatred because I'm just not an Argentina fan. And it doesn't really have to do with Messi, as I brought it up earlier in the show. So with that said, I mean, let's go into the Netherlands game. The Netherlands game between Argentina was full of drama, full of craziness, and one of those things, obviously, you hats off to Messi. The man is a magician. like him or not, as Madridistas, he has caused us so much hurt and so much pain over the years. But in the end, this pass that he gave to, I believe it was Molina, Nahuel Molina, was absolutely filthy. It was one of the best passes I have ever seen. A no-look pass in what looked like a split second. I mean, if you look at it from the shot that they have from above the pitch, they did there's like a video shot, look for it on Twitter, that they did from above the pitch. I don't even know I don't even know how he saw that opening, because the opening, the window of opportunity to score that was literally, it was a split second, it was a split second decision to make that, and it was incredible. So, hats off to him for that one. With that said, then we move on to obviously all the antics and stuff like that. And here's where my opinion is going to, I guess, piss off some Argentinians. But, I don't, from everything I read from what Van Gaal said, I don't understand how the Argentinian fan base, wherever you're from, and like I said, love the Argentinians. I've never had a bad blood with any of them. I just dislike the team, and I've disliked them mostly because Dibu Martinez, because of him, talking trash to Colombia during the Copa America when we were in penalties and, saying all kinds of shit. Messi also, joined in there too. So I was, I had a bone to pick with him a bit, but not as much. But I think Dibu was the one who started it all. So that is kind of my issue. But the funny thing is, it's different because with Van Gaal, I don't see anything him saying as being offensive to the Argentinian team. I mean, when you are a coach, when you're a coach, you're going to try to fire up your players in any way possible. The things that are said in the locker room, I'm pretty sure are never nice things, And listen, like I said, if you guys are new to my podcast, like I said, I have a background in combat sports. I used to be a fighter. I used to box in the ring. Okay. And I bring a lot of these things, and now I've coached fighters, I've coached fighters. And trust me, when you're talking about the other fighter, when you're talking about the opponent, you might be nice to him, obviously in the press and to his face and everything, because respect is important. But what I'm telling my fighter is, we're going to fuck this guy up, and, I'm not trying to curse all the time, but that's exactly what we say. We're gonna mess this guy up. We're gonna send him home. We're gonna put him on a stretcher. All this kind of stuff is what you're telling your fighter to rile him up. And from what I see from Louis van Gaal is I saw that was kind of the same thing that he was saying, and not even to that degree of aggressiveness that I'm telling you. I mean, he was saying, Argentina, really, in a lot of ways, what he's saying is Argentina focuses on Messi. I mean, their player is essentially Messi. If you take Messi out of the game, you have a good chance of winning the game, because it's really Messi and 10 more players, and I really feel that way. I think this Argentina team, it's not like this Argentina team has, outside of Messi, this Argentina team has shown us incredible football in this World Cup. It's Messi consistently having to unlock the other teams, and for that he's been absolutely fantastic. He is the one essentially unlocking and breaking the deadlocks in all of these games. I looked at the footage of the games that they're playing right now, and you see consistently that the team is every time they have the ball, a lot of the players are looking up to see where Messi is on the pitch. So the idea is they are looking to him to essentially be the savior. And why not? That's not a bad way, but I mean, why not? Because he is the man, But what happens if the other team is really pressuring him? And we know that we've seen it when he was in Barcelona. We've seen it when he's at PSG. If you kind of take him a little bit out of the equation, Messi will slow down. He will kind of start putting his head down and walking around, even though we know that's also dangerous for him to just be walking around because at any minute he'll wake up and go after you. But essentially that's what Van Gaal was saying. And then, any team that's going to go to penalties, right? Any team that's going to go to penalties, you're going to say you're going to win. Oh, the penalty shootout is an advantage to us because we feel we're better at penalties than this guy. How is that disrespecting the other team? What is he supposed to say to the press? Is he supposed to say that they feel inferior to the other team? Because if he says that in the press, that's also going to be, who else is going to hear that? His players. If you go up to any team and say, I don't care if you are, watching this Captain's Netflix documentary, there's this team, Vanuatu. I think they're rated like 165 out of the 211 teams registered with FIFA. I mean, they are a team that essentially has never been close to getting into the World Cup, But I don't care if you're Vanuatu and you're going to play against France, the coach is going to tell you, we can win this game. We can have an advantage. There's an advantage there. We have a chance. You never say die. You go and, you're going to say this stuff. The other team, and you might try to rile up the other team a little bit and say, hey, we feel like, Messi's 35 years old. I think he's slowing down. I feel like Rodrigo de Paul hasn't been having the best World Cup. I feel like their back line, Otamendi, sometimes can be a liability. He's been in the past, although he's having a pretty good World Cup right now. So if you're saying that stuff, the idea isn't to disrespect the other team. The idea is to get, it out there that you're feeling confident. And so for these guys to say that that was an insult to them just doesn't fly with me. It doesn't fly with me to say that that was an insult to your team. I think that's just natural coaching talk that you say. I mean, unless he said, Messi is a 5'4" midget that doesn't know how to play football. And, I've never considered him the greatest in the world. I don't know why anybody says he is. Like, if you were to say that, I mean, I can understand that being insulting. I can understand saying, Argentina sucks. They haven't won anything since 1986. Why are they so arrogant? Why do they talk? Why do they act like they're the best in the world? If you're saying stuff like that, then I understand them getting angry. But I don't think anything that was said by Van Gaal warranted the reaction from these players, and then I don't know where it all started, obviously, but to me, this picture here that I'm showing up on the screen, which is where, Paredes commits a foul, a bad foul on Nathan Ake, and then pelts the ball at the bench. Not only should have Paredes been, tossed off the field at that point, but I think that's kind of where it started, because people are saying, oh, it's because they were talking trash to us during the penalty shootout. But this happened before the penalty shootout. This guy went up and pelted the ball against the Dutch bench in like the 87th, what was it, the 82nd, 87th minute? So I don't know where, they're saying that was entirely, the Dutch behavior being that. And like I said, nothing that Van Gaal said was rude to me in any way or disrespectful in any way. They might have a bone to pick with him because they say, oh, he disrespects South American players. He disrespected Di Maria. I don't think he disrespected Di Maria in anything he said. He said, yeah, I guess, some players have said that they don't get along with me. Memphis Depay also didn't get along with me at one point. And now we kiss on the mouth. That's what he said. That is what he said, So it's crazy to me. It's crazy to me that this happened, and then the antics, I think, during the penalty, I mean, Weghorst, of course, scores this crazy goal. Absolutely insane free kick, a hilarious free kick, really, that I don't think anybody saw coming, although he scored one just like that when he played in the Bundesliga for Wolfsburg. But an absolute, crazy, well, not only did he score a beautiful header, but he comes in and also scores that crazy free kick, ties it up in the last minute of regulation, and it goes 2-2. And I think at that point he had shut up all the Argentinian fans, and it was crazy. We didn't know where it was going to go. But Argentina then dominated, rightly so. They dominated, not rightly so, but I'm saying they dominated the extra time. They go to penalties, and yeah, I see a little bit of gamesmanship there by the Dutch, approaching the players and stuff like that. Hey, and this is another thing. They're not showing a couple of other things there, but Dibu Martinez, who I hate with a passion, I really dislike that guy. There's a part where he's showing the ball to whoever was going to take it, and then he just tosses the ball to the side, kind of like saying, here, you go pick it up now. So this little jawing back and forth wasn't only coming from the Dutch. So to say to them to play victims now and say, oh, they provoked us and all this, so this, you don't want to see this kind of crap. Honestly, I don't, like I said, man, I've been in the fighting world. You talk all sorts of shit, but once you get in the ring and you beat the shit out of each other, honestly, most of the times after I had, we had me and the other fighter had beat the crap out of each other, or my fighter had beat the crap out of the other guy. There was hugs. There were, mad respect. Sometimes you even go out with a beer with them afterwards. I mean, this kind of crap where you're rubbing it in their face and saying, I got you, or whatever is to me, it's fucking childish. But that's maybe I come from a different sport. So I think for you to act all hard and bad when you're a soccer player, and I'm saying the word soccer here, I guess, but when you're a football player is kind of like a bitch move, but anyway, moving on from that. So obviously I don't want Argentina. This guy, I absolutely want him. Yeah, man, dude, he could be great with the Selección Argentina. He's great. You can call it passion. You can call it whatever you want. But when he played against Colombia, he was talking all sorts of trash on the line, saying, I know where you're going to kick it. I'm going to eat you, cabron. All this kind of stuff, just mouthing off to the players of Colombia, all this kind of shit. And he does it. I think he does it with Aston Villa too. And I'm like, dude, somebody needs to remind this guy that he plays for fucking Aston Villa, dude. You're 12th in the Premiership. Obviously, you're a great goalkeeper with Selección Argentina, but at least when it comes to penalty shootouts. But besides that, meh. But like I said, I'm biased because I have Dutch family, so that's my thing. But either way, man. So moving on, yeah, this whole thing talking about Van Gaal and all this kind of stuff afterwards. This guy's 72 years old. He's got fucking cancer, and you're coming after him. Like, come on, man. Like, dude, the game's over. You won. You don't need to rub it in their face. Anyway, let's move on from that. I don't want them to win, obviously. I hope Croatia boots them out. If it's not Croatia, then I hope it's Morocco or France. If they win, they win. Whatever. But I am definitely not rooting for them. And once again, it really doesn't have to do much with Messi because Messi's a genius. But Dibu Martinez, Paredes for that kick, Otamendi for let's go back to that picture. What was it? This crap here. Look, you got Otamendi, Paredes. I think this is Montiel, who won't be playing anyway in the semifinals. So haha to you. McAllister, and see here, I can't even say anything bad about Messi. Messi's focused on having won at that point. I think what he did after he could have avoided. But Messi is focused on. I know he ran to Emiliano Martinez, to Dibu Martinez to celebrate with him, and then you see here there's two other players. I don't know who these are. I don't know if it's Petzela or who else was on the field at that point. I know this is Enzo Fernandez, but you see like Enzo and Messi are focused on like, let's just go and celebrate, and these other guys are just focused on like just trying to rub it in the faces of the others. So not a big fan of that, but moving on. So man, hats off to Morocco. Like I said, I don't care about them playing defensive football or whatever that nonsense is that people think, it has to be that the football has to be entertaining all the time, especially when you're a smaller team, when you're a team that nobody ever thought was going to make it. You have to sometimes employ these gritty styles of football. And then people who hate defensive football, I wonder, did they ever watch Catenaccio? Did they ever watch the Italian national team like during the 90s play, where it was like they scored a goal and then everyone just locked down? Had they never seen that before? This is, parking the bus is not like a new strategy. It's something that you do because you want to make sure that you could win the game. And in something like the World Cup, trying to play pretty football isn't going to always get you results. It could leave you open to get scored on, Case in point, the game between Brazil and Croatia. Brazil scores the goal. Croatia scores the goal, right? And then I don't know why Brazil continued. It seemed like Brazil had a high line, continued to press. I don't know if they were trying to score another one just to like ice the game, but just completely shut the game out. But they ended up leaving themselves open to a brutal counterattack from Croatia, and Petkovic buried it. Obviously, it took a deflection off Marquinhos, unfortunately, but he buried it, and then it essentially cost you the game. So sometimes, scoring a goal and shutting down isn't always a terrible thing to do, So it's anyway. So going back to this, going back to this team, this Moroccan team, I think they've been absolutely fantastic. I mean, listen. I saw a couple of lineups here of people saying, what the World Cup starting 11 is going to be. Amrabat, guys. Amrabat. What a fantastic player. The dude plays for Fiorentina. And he's a wall. He's absolutely a wall. I don't know if he's going to be staying at Fiorentina after this performance in this World Cup, because he's been absolutely fantastic. Boufal. Oh my God. Boufal is I've been watching him. He is, fantastic dribbler. I don't know why he's never done better than he's done. I mean, I know I had seen him. I remember, was it at I don't know if it was at Southampton or at Sunderland. I don't remember, but I remember him being in the Premier League. I mean, he's always been talented, maybe just inconsistency, but with this team, he's showing some great stuff. And then you also have, of course, Ziyech. You have Hakimi. And coming here, Chad is basically saying, you have the left flank is going to be so much fun with the likes of Theo and Mbappe against Ziyech and Hakimi. That is going to be, that's going to be fire. But, the crazy thing is Mbappe in the England game knew that they were going to have Walker on him. He knew that, who was pretty much on that side? Was it Phil Foden that was on that side with him? No, or was it who was on the attacking side? Shoot. Was it Saka? I think it was Saka, right? So, I mean, they had pacey, solid players covering them as well. Theo and Mbappe. Theo and Mbappe. And they were able to manage it. And what I think is was very interesting from, but I'll get into that in the. Well, anyway, let me say it now before I forget it. But I think what was very interesting from Mbappe in that England game was he, I guess, knowing that so many people were going to cover him, you would see him like race down the sideline, receive the ball, and instead of trying to take on Kyle Walker, it's almost like he tried to drag the ball, get Kyle Walker closer to him, maybe bring in the other players closer to him, and then deliver it to Griezmann to switch it up, because really where the majority of stuff was coming from actually ended up coming from that right flank. There was a lot more action coming from Dembele and Koundé, and then obviously Griezmann kind of moving to that side. That was where a lot of stuff, kind of started coming in, and at the beginning of the game. So he was Mbappe was in a lot of ways kind of sacrificing himself, being like, I'm not going to try and be the star of the show here. I'm not going to, play this game that they want me to play, which is, take on Kyle Walker consistently. He didn't do that. He played more of the role like, I'm going to have them, come to me, hold up the ball, have them come to me, and then, get the other side open, the other flank open, or or get it to the middle and let Griezmann and Giroud do their thing, whatever, So I liked what they did there. No, I haven't gone over Portugal already. I'm right on it right now. My boy Cheeky joining it. But yeah, so I'm on it right now, Cheeky. This is I'm talking about Morocco. Morocco is a fantastic team. I think, speaking of Portugal, what it is I think that a lot of people saw, and this is the same thing I think we saw with Brazil. Brazil beating Korea 4-1, right? A lot of people thought, oh, Brazil, Brazil's just firing on all cylinders. I thought it. A lot of pundits thought it. And then you saw Portugal, slam Switzerland 6-1, right? And so a lot of people thought, oh, yeah, Portugal, man, these guys are on fire. Gonçalo Ramos, now this is the guy that is going to take over for Cristiano. Let's bench Cristiano and put in this guy, and this is the guy to do it. And they were playing some really, good dynamic football. Joao Felix had an incredible game, against Switzerland. And then they faced this Moroccan team, and they didn't play with the same sort of free-flowing football. I mean, they did get a lot more chances. I know Cancelo, Bruno Fernandes hit the post with a smashing, what looked like a cross sort of hit on goal, but it was a strike on goal. It hits the post. Joao Felix did a couple of shots on goal as well. Cristiano Ronaldo got a shot. Pepe got an incredibly wide open, well, not wide open, but he got a pretty a header that really should have gone in and tied the game. But besides that, I mean, Morocco were dangerous on every single one of the counterattacks. Amrabat, number 8, Ouani, I think his name is, Ouani. Like I said, Boufal, Hakimi, Ziyech, El-Nesiri. I mean, these guys are all very, very talented players, guys. These are all incredibly talented players. I mean, just look at this jump from El-Nesiri. This jump, and for you guys that are listening, like I said, I'm putting pictures up on the thing here. But El-Nesiri, look at that jump from El-Nesiri. But part of it is El-Nesiri's ups. If the ups that El-Nesiri had at that moment rivals Cristiano Ronaldo's famous header over Atalanta, what was it, a couple of years ago when he was playing for Juve, that people put it, over and over and over again. But look at the jump there from El-Nesiri. and the thing is too, man, I don't know what Ruben Dias is doing, and I don't know why Diogo Costa came out so late. Because he I think he second-guessed himself. And as we all know, in these professional sports, a split-second indecision will cost you the game. And that cost him the game because, as you can see there, even though Diogo Costa's got his hands up, he is like 1 second late, and El-Nesiri is already up there. There's no way he's going to get to that ball. Diogo Costa, I mean. And it's a header. It's a goal. And then at that point, Morocco is going to play the game that they can play, which is essentially give you the possession of the ball, come and get us. We're going to lock it down. We're not going to let any space for you to do what you want to do. And then I felt Portugal throughout the game. I was getting really, really, really frustrated with Portugal. I feel a lot of times they were doing a lot of like extra dribbles, trying to get into the box, trying to find they would always like kind of dribble, as we say, like in Spanish, we say una de más. They were always doing one more thing than they needed to do. And these defenders from Morocco were so good. Saiss, I know that Gerd isn't playing there right now because he got hurt. But Saiss was huge in there as well. So those guys would be on them in a split second. So for you to take so much time was ridiculous. And this is where I feel like Fernando Santos did a bad choice of not putting Cristiano Ronaldo in the game, because even though Gonçalo Ramos did a good job in the game against Switzerland, Switzerland is not a team that just sits back and defends for like pretty much 90 minutes and just waits to sit back and then counterattack, sit back and counterattack. I mean, I think as ugly as it would have been for Portugal, and maybe that's not their style, they needed to be, I mean, I think you would have been better off starting that strategy from the beginning, or maybe when you saw 20 minutes, 30 minutes into the first half, that this team was so incredibly hard to break down, and that Gonzalo Ramos was definitely not having the same game he had against Switzerland. You make the decision as the coach and be like, hey, man, I'm going to bring in Cristiano Ronaldo because you know what Cristiano Ronaldo is pretty good at? Getting the ups like this guy does and jumping up and heading the ball in. And start pelting crosses into the box if you want to play that game. They're giving you possession. Keep on doing it. Keep on trying to do it and get balls into the box. You know? And obviously, I think that for me, the dynamic, people can say all they want on, the pundits can say all they want that I've seen, that the game didn't really change when Cristiano came on. The game did change because they had a lot more shots on goal. I think they had more shots or more opportunities. And then essentially also it's, you know, even these Moroccan players, I'm pretty sure a lot of them respect Cristiano. They're going to be like, hey, this guy's on the field. He may not be in the best form. He may be 37 years old, but he's still Cristiano Ronaldo. 1 minute, how do they know? Like, obviously he hasn't been playing the greatest of football, but how do they know at that moment? How do they know at that moment that he might not wake up in this game and then all of a sudden score a hat trick like he's done in the past? Far-fetched, I know, and that's something that I don't think was going to happen, but they can't know that maybe this is the game he wakes up in, you know? So they're still going to have to cover him. They're still going to have to be there. And I think you use that feeling of having that person that everyone knows is a killer, and you use that to your advantage. But you just put in a bunch of, you know, young players in there. And I think you putting them in the second half, it was in the 51st minute of the second half. I think you're already chasing the game. Morocco knows that they're going to throw themselves back. You know, they already know that they got to throw themselves back in it. You know, and you're chasing it now. You're chasing it now. You know, you were chasing the game. You're going to get into desperation. And then that's what happened, man. I saw a lot of just bad passes, terrible crosses that kept on going along, losing possession. At that point, the whole, you know, Jesus Christ, the whole stadium is against you. They're whistling every single time you have the ball. They're happy. They're cheering every minute you lose possession. I mean, that was never going to, it's a mountain to climb at that point. And that's when you're going to throw Cristiano Ronaldo on it. You know, obviously those are the pressure moments that he lives for, but you know, this is not the same Cristiano Ronaldo we've been, you know, from back in the day, you know, it should have been, even if he's not the same Cristiano from back in the day, give him more time to do it. Don't just give him, you know, say, hey, now save us in these last 40 minutes. In these last 30 minutes, we need you to save our ass, you know? I just think that was a bad decision. And you know what? People agree with me. At least Georgina agrees with me, and Luis Figo agrees with me. The legend that he is for Real Madrid. And then Georgina, of course, his partner or whatnot. But you know, I think, you know, it was a bad thing to do. And then whatever, though, you know, it happens. I'm heartbroken. I'm heartbroken for Portugal. I think my teams in this World Cup since the beginning was Portugal. I felt like Brazil was always going to be the one that was going to win it. That obviously is not going to happen. Portugal was one of them. And I always have a little thing for Croatia, but I didn't think they were going to come this far. I think they can be a surprise. Who knows? My heart still tells me that France is going to win this thing. So we'll see what happens. Even if it goes France-Argentina, I still think France has more firepower and just more overall, has been looked overall the better team throughout this entire World Cup than anything we've seen from Argentina. But Argentina, of course, has a magic man, which is Leo Messi. But PSG has a little guy named Mbappe, a young man named Mbappe, which can always screw your night up. So I would love to see Croatia win. I would love to see Croatia win, but But like I say, my heart is going for Croatia, but my head is telling me it's going to be France. You know, I could be wrong. But those are my picks. So anyway, moving on from here, these sad scenes. Cheeky, I know you're a Barcelona fan. I know you're a Barcelona fan. I know you're a Messi fan, but it's always sad to see legends go out. And so for me, it was super sad to see, that, knowing that this is going to be the last time Cristiano Ronaldo is in a World Cup. His sister said something about 41 still being in your prime. I really doubt that Cristiano Ronaldo is going to play at 41. I mean, I don't even know. We don't even know right now what kind of football he's going to be having, because he doesn't have a team right now. So where is he going to be going that he's going to be getting, high-level football? I think if he goes to the MLS, he's not getting called up by the Portugal team. I think also if he goes to Saudi Arabia, which he's obviously said he's not going, he doesn't get called up by the Portugal team. I mean, I just think the level in both the MLS and, the MLS maybe is getting better, but I still think if he's in the MLS and he's in Saudi Arabia or some other country like that, he's not getting called up. For me, hopefully, I think he either goes to another team, maybe in Italy. I don't think he's going to go to another team in the Premier League unless it's Newcastle, because Saudi Arabia obviously has the money there in Newcastle. I know there was rumors about Chelsea and stuff like that, but I don't think that's going to happen. Bayern was there. Like, people were saying Bayern. I don't think that's going to happen, of course. I would like to see him go to... he's going to Millonarios of Colombia. Yes, Chiqui. That's the rumor that I hear. He's going to go for a couple of pesos and a naranja postón, which is a soda from Colombia, guys. But no, yeah, I think he's going to end up at Sporting. Sporting Lisboa. I think that would be a nice story. He's going to, a lot of people are going to love him to be there in Lisbon. Sporting has been in the Champions League. I think he can still play some Champions League football. I think they would want him because essentially, yes, he is a god for Portugal. So I think that's really his best bet. But yeah, just sad to see him go out like that. It'll be sad. I mean, even as a guy who does, I've said it before, I'm not an Argentina fan. I don't like Messi. But I would still be sad. Not that I don't like Messi. I'm sorry. I'm not going to say that because that's not true. I like Messi. I think he's a genius. I just don't like him because of the fact that he caused me so much pain as a Madridista. He caused me so much pain. But he's obviously an excellent player. He's obviously one of the greatest of all time, if not the greatest. So, when Messi goes out like this, I think, we're all going to be sad too. And then when they're both gone, it's going to be a sad thing. I mean, really, the only guy right now we have that is going to fill those footsteps is Mbappe and then Haaland, which I think is going to be the new thing to see. But Haaland, for me, is, he's a goal scoring machine, but he's not, he doesn't have the dribbling that this guy has, that these guys both had, that these guys both had that flair, that style. Haaland doesn't have it. He's just a monster in front of goal that bangs them in. He's a Terminator. He's not human. He's a cyborg, a cybernetic organism, metal exoskeleton over living tissue or whatever it is that Arnold Schwarzenegger says in Terminator. That is Haaland. And then, I think the thing that I would say beyond that is really, I think Mbappe is, aside from Haaland and everyone's saying, oh no, Haaland is great, he's amazing, he's scoring so many goals. Yes, he's going to continue scoring goals and he's going to be amazing. He's going to rack up, I think, insane numbers. But I think people need to be real and say, I think Mbappe is the more skilled overall player, dribbling wise, his positioning, his take-ons, his, everything that his goal scoring. I think he's the more complete player. Haaland is your, out and out number 9 killer in front of goal. So they're two different players. With that said, Here we go. I mean, just want to talk a little bit quickly there about the France game. Tchouaméni, Real Madrid pride there. Tchouaméni with that banger from outside the box to open up scoring against England. I really think England had a solid team this year, and I think they can only continue growing, to be honest with you. As much as I don't like, hearing the pundits from England talking so much trash about England and stuff talking so much trash about other teams that aren't England and always thinking that England is the greatest team that has ever existed. And obviously they are the inventors of football, but I really think they have a talented squad. I really like a lot of these English players. Phil Foden, I think is a great player. I think Jude Bellingham is a fantastic player. I like Declan Rice. Actually, Declan Rice, I like him, but I don't think he's that amazing as they try to tell us he is. Obviously, I like Jordan Henderson from Liverpool. I like Raheem Sterling. I like Saka. I think Harry Kane is a class dude. I mean, he's unlucky, but I think he's a great striker. So and all the guys seem like just overall good dudes, man. I mean, I don't think the animosity, that their pundits, I think the British press puts so much, puts so much pressure on these guys, you haven't won a World Cup since 1966. You would think you would stop talking so much trash and blowing smoke, up these poor kids, and just let them, kind of evolve into the team that they can be, I agree. Like the things that they say in the media, like, that chat's bringing up, that Harry Kane is up there with Benzema. Like, in what world, man? What has Harry Kane won? Great player, sure. World-class player, 100%. Like the guy. I like the guy. I think, like I said, I think he's a class act. But to say that he's up there with Benzema, to put him up there with the likes of, I don't know, with Haaland and other strikers, number nines that were, just legendary number nines, is nowhere near. I mean, it's just not happening. And as long as he's at Tottenham, I'm sorry, Tottenham fans, Spurs fans, as long as he's at Tottenham, dude, he's not going to get a shout for these, for winning a golden, for winning a Ballon d'Or or any sort of really big accolade. He needs to get out of there and go to a winning team, because that's not going to help him. I mean, Spurs, it's limited in what it can do, so we'll see what happens. But Tchouaméni, beautiful shot there, gets the goal, scores the opener. Obviously, then Giroud, there was a penalty from Harry Kane. Harry Kane scores it. Then Giroud, that beautiful French forehead, as Arlo White once said, scoring that amazing header in I believe it was like the 77th minute. At that point, I think a lot of people thought it was over. And then Harry Kane gets another penalty and then skies it. And there was a hilarious Twitter video. I was trying to look for it, but I was going to be late to the podcast if I, didn't to the live stream if I didn't post. I'm sorry, to the live stream if I looked for it. So I didn't look for it, but it was a meme or a edit that they made where Harry Kane kicks the ball and it flies, and I think it hits Jurgen Klopp. It hits a window where Jurgen Klopp is behind it and breaks the window, and Jurgen Klopp smiles. So it was a hilarious meme, and sad to see, obviously, that's happening. But there you go. Unfortunately for Harry Kane, I mean, dude's like I said, he's a class act. I've never seen Harry Kane be like just, a terrible, arrogant dude. I think it's, like I said, I think it's the pundits in England kind of always. The thing is so crazy about the English media is they inflate this team, as we say in Spanish. They inflate this team with so much. They put so much on this team and say, they're going to win. It's coming home, and we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And every little advancement makes them feel like they're definitely going to do it, instead of waiting it out. And being like, let's take it slow, game by game, not get ahead of ourselves, because we've been here before where we get very close to winning something and then we don't. And then what happens is, like I said, they inflate these guys with all this, with all these, energy and start saying, yeah, we're going to do it. 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 And then at the end, it just comes down, and then they start ripping these poor guys apart in the press. It's just been the same thing over and over again from what I've seen. So I think it's just something you got to relax on. So this was something that I saw that was absolutely beautiful. Now, you guys that are listening on the podcast, I hope this is not loud if you're listening in audio, but this was what Modrić said to Rodrigo after the game between Croatia and Brazil. So that video was, it's kind of hard to hear because there's so much stuff going on, of course. But that's Modrić hugging Rodrigo, and he tells him, essentially he says, no pasa nada, which means like, kind of like, don't worry about it, or there's nothing wrong, in a way kind of saying, and then says, you're going to grow from this. You're going to grow from this. And then essentially tells him that he loves him. And I think he tells him at one point that he's going to see him in Spain or something, which I guess, means he's going to see him back at the Real Madrid camp. But he hugs him and basically tells him, you're going to grow from this, which I think is super important for somebody like Modrić to say, because Modrić is 37, obviously knows that this is his last World Cup. But the likes of Rodrigo, Vinicius Jr., I think Neymar still has another one left in him. I know Darshil, you said that you didn't think Neymar has another one left in him. He's 30. I think he's going to be 34 in the World Cup in the United States. So I think Neymar can still do it. And he's going to have a more mature supporting cast around him with the likes of Vinicius and Rodrigo, getting even better, Militao getting even better. Obviously, we're going to see, you're going to lose players like Thiago Silva. You're going to lose players probably like Marquinhos. But you have guys like Anthony. You have guys like Martinelli, like Gabriel de Jesus, which I think are still going to be very important players for this team. I don't know how old Richarlison is, but I think he'll still be available. So, I think they're going to have a chance. So this was nice to see, kind of like, hey, you're going to get another chance at this. And this team, this Brazil team, is a fantastic team. And I think a lot of the things that happened with this game, that they lost was Chiche. That change where he took Vinicius off the pitch. And then I think who else did he take off the pitch that was just like mind-boggling? He took Vinicius off the pitch and put Rodrigo in that position where I don't think and I don't think Rafinha has been having a good World Cup. So I think it should have been Rodrigo on the right-hand side, which is he plays on the right when he's in Real Madrid, or Anthony on the right-hand side. Maybe put in maybe instead of bringing on that guy Pedro who didn't really do anything, I would have put Rodrigo as a number 9 because he's played that position for actually, I don't even know why he took Richarlison out. That's the one I think. Why are you going to take Richarlison out, who's been your best so far? He's been having a good World Cup. And taking Vinicius out when he looked dangerous every single time. I think he wanted to change something up because he wanted to win this World Cup. But I'm sorry, he wanted to win that game so badly, but he took out the wrong pieces. If anything, we never saw Bruno Guimaraes in this game. I would have, liked to see him. He left Paquetá on the field, which I think, he wasn't having the best game either, so there were other options there, and I don't know why. I think it's kind of on him. And then this is another video that I liked. So I just wanted to play it real quick. This is the reaction of it was a steward essentially, or like a security guard who happened to be from Morocco, and he was there during the Morocco-Spain game. So here it is. So this is the last Hakimi's kick. Yeah, man, look at the emotion on that dude's face. So Hakimi takes the final penalty, which essentially won them the game, which was pretty cool to see. But and the funny thing is, these security guards, these stewards, they always have to be facing like the crowd, so he can't really look back and see his team playing. But he sees the team, he kind of looks back, glances at it because he knows it's the last penalty, and Hakimi steps up to take it. Hakimi scores it, and you see his face go from immediately opening up his mouth, just like, oh my God, he scored it, and then tears immediately. He covers his face, and that's just beautiful, man. That's football. That's football. I love it. What a guy. But yeah, so that is essentially what I have for today, guys. It was a crazy, I think I say that a lot, but I think it's super relevant to right now, to this World Cup, that they've been playing this way. I'm sorry, this World Cup has been having all these crazy results. That's what it's been like. It's been this crazy World Cup, with so many surprises, so many insane moments, and we still don't know how it's going to end up. I mean, it could end up a Croatia-Morocco final. Imagine that, which I would like, because Croatia-Morocco would be at least guaranteeing that one team that has never won the World Cup is going to win the World Cup. Which the last time that happened was the 2010 final between Spain and the Netherlands, which I loved because it was one team was going to a new team was finally going to come out of that, So a new team was finally going to lift that trophy. If Croatia and Morocco were to go to the final, that would be guaranteeing that a new team was going to, lift up this World Cup. France could potentially get their third. Argentina could potentially get their third. But hey, I'm going for the underdogs. But for me, of course, my heart is with Luka. I got his, there he is. I got his number 19 jersey right behind me. Luka Modrić, his number 19 jersey when he was 19 with Real Madrid. Now he's number 10, of course, at Real Madrid. He's number 10 in Croatia, but that's where my heart is. That's with my boy, Luka Modrić. That's who I want to see win this World Cup. But if it doesn't go that way, then, God, I hope anybody but Argentina takes it. So that's it, guys. Really, that is the podcast, guys. Thank you once again for listening to the show. I really appreciate it. Remember, you can follow us on Inadamas Podcast on Twitter, at Inadamas Podcast on on Facebook. We are YNM Podcast on Instagram. Our website is at inadamas.net, or inadamas.net, essentially, www.inadamas.net. And also on Twitch, Inadamas Podcast, on Facebook, Inadamas Podcast. We are on Apple Podcast, Spotify. I will be throwing up the audio of this after the podcast, after I finish the live stream right now. I'm going to throw up the audio onto Spotify, onto Apple Podcasts, so you will still be able to see this as a podcast. But thank you guys again for joining me. Please let me know, how I'm doing. Give me, if you guys are on Apple Podcasts, please give me a review, a subscription. If you guys tell your friends, Darshil, tell your friends, tell your boys that are big fans of Madrid, tell them Ala Madrid that you know this podcast. Tell them to subscribe to the channel. Do me a favor. Cheeky, I know you're a Barcelona fan, but I know you love good content. Please tell your friends to subscribe. Thank you guys very much for listening. Thank you very much for joining me for this episode of the podcast. And I will talk to you again soon.